So I think we have the quorum, and we are going to start the event today. So I welcome you all to this fourth event of the Yoga Speaker Series, University of Guelph's Yoga Speaker Series. Uh, so I am going to actually first do the land acknowledgement. This I think is very important. So. Uh, land acknowledgement goes this way. The University of Guelph resides in the ancestral and treaty lands of the Eta Venderon people and the Mississaugas of the Credit, and we recognize and honor our Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Métis neighbors. The dish with one spoon covenant speaks to our collective responsibility to steward and sustain the land and environment in which we live and work. So before we go ahead, we will do a little bit of conditioning here, as we have been doing in all the events, So let's join our palms together and try to expand your sternum, okay? Expand your chest at the sternum here. So what that will do is that it will release your shoulders, it will align your spine, it will straighten your spine. Make sure that your head, neck, and spine, they are all aligned. And you can join your palms together. And gently close your eyes. Gently close your eyes. So your eyelids gently covering your eyes. Your gaze is fixed within the eye. That will help focus the mind. So your eyes are very gentle, calm, kind, clear. And your attention is on the breath. So we are trying to bring the mind from out somewhere to the breath. Breath, that is our life force. Without breath, we would not be here. Remember that? Without breath, we would not be here. We forget that in our busy life. And then we spend the day or hours without awareness of ourself. So your focus on the breath. And just noticing the breath at the nostril. This is part of the conditioning before we start our practice or event or a meeting, so that we are in the even state of mind, even state of emotion, even state of feeling, in the equanimity. It is a little bit difficult maybe in the beginning, but with the practice, we can learn that. Once we are in the evenness, we can set an intention to our practice. Why are we here? How we can make the maximum out of this event, this series, this hour, for the benefit of us and to the others. I want to remind you that yoga is practiced at many dimensions, at many levels: mental, physical, emotional, social, environmental, meditative, spiritual. Yoga is said to be one with the life. And we will hear that from our speaker today about the role of the plants in the yoga, the science of the plants and the yoga. Keep paying attention to your breath. And I hope that you brought your yoga mat, or if you have nearby, I would urge you to sit on the mat throughout the session if you can. Because there is something inherent in sitting down in cross-legged or any other pose, just being close to the Mother Earth. There is something very calming. There is something very secure. There is something like our own home. We don't have to go anywhere. We are here. So keep your eyes closed, and then you can move your palms away, your hands away, and then you can bring them on your knees if you are in the sitting asana or the posture. We call this posture as Sukhasana or happy pose. So remember this as a happy pose or Sukhasana, not as a cross-legged. Say that I'm getting into Sukhasana, into happy pose. And now I would ask to keep your eyes closed. So I'll ask you to just rub your palms together, create the yogic energy, make a cup of your palms, and then cover your eyes. And again, feel your breath. This is, I think, one of the best ways to feel that you are breathing very, very clearly. You can feel it. You can feel the sound. You can feel the touch of the breath. So keep going inside, deep inside. That means fully merging with your breath. Merging the union of the body and the mind. Our mind is totally merged in the breath. You can keep your eyes closed. Now you can remove your palms, but you can keep your eyes closed for a few moments, or if you can keep during the whole this event, and just just get one with the speaker, one with the message there. So if you have not attended these events, if this is your first event, my name is Lalit Jerath, and I work at the University of Guelph. I've been working there for almost 25 years. So you can see how much I love working here. And out of those 25 years, I have been teaching yoga for about 10 years, 10 plus years. And we have created a collective here at the University of Guelph. It is called University of Guelph Yoga and Meditation Collective, where everyone is welcome, no matter what. There is no bar, no age, no sex, or no race. You know what I'm saying? There's no bar. Anybody can come and join. It's a very, very welcoming environment. We teach two classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1. So you can come and practice with us. So today's speaker is Praveen Saxena, Professor Dr. Praveen Saxena. He's a professor of plant agriculture at the University of Guelph, as I say that, and is the director of the Gosling Research Institute for Plant Preservation. He also researches the synergy of medicinal plants and traditional yoga and meditation practices. Dr. Saxena publishes an online magazine, Spiritual Botany. It's very, very interesting. Okay, if you get a chance, please go and have a look at that to enhance awareness of plant-human relationship and environmental consciousness. So I will leave the stage for Dr. Saxena. So please take the stage.
Thank you, Lalit. It's a very kind introduction, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity that you have provided and the platform that you have created to share views on yoga and how they relate to human health and environment. I would also like to thank you for really working very hard to enhance the awareness of yoga and the benefits that it has through your weekly classes on campus. We all have benefited from it. Also, I should applaud the effort that University of Guelph is making in these days, in these challenging times of COVID, through the Multi-Faith Resource Committee, as well as many other offices to help the student, faculty, and staff for maintaining mental wellness. We all know that because of COVID-19, it has been a challenging time, and we hear stories about depression and anxiety and all of those factors. So it's a great place to be in this scenario, and I'm very much appreciative and very happy to be part of this speaker series as well, now that you have gone global through the internet with your classes and speaker series. So thank you very much. Today, I'm going to talk about yoga and meditation and how they are related to mental wellness. We're going to look at the interaction of mind, meditation, and mental wellness. And also, I am going to throw in a surprise package here. It's no longer a surprise anymore. You have already let it out. I'm going to talk a little bit about plants. Of course, I'm a plant biologist and I am biased. However, I'm very positive that by the end of this presentation, in about 40 minutes, you will look at the plants very differently than the way you have been so far. So without any further ado, let me share my screen and go back to the slide. So here is, I hope that everybody can see the slide. Lalit, is that okay? Yeah, all right. So yoga, the synergy of mind, meditation, and mental well-being is the outline of my talk today. And it's all geared towards improving the mental wellness. As I said, I'm going to speak a little bit about mind, how it plays games with us, and what we can do through the meditation process. And all of this falls within the umbrella of yoga. And the surprise package here is plans how they can help us achieve spirituality and also good mental health. So before we begin, let's define yoga. It's a very popular term. It is very widely used, but it means different things to different people. Yoga has its origin in a Sanskrit word, which is yog or yut, which literally means union. And it has two components. Although yoga is a multi-dimensional concept, but two of the important ones are the physical and spiritual. It happens with poses and postures and a bit of breathing exercise as well. And all of this is good for maintaining mental wellness and good health. The second aspect of yoga is spiritual, and it has two dimensions. As I said, the word yoga means union, and this union happens at two levels. The very first level is at the personal level, which is the self discovery. This aspect of yoga allows us to understand about ourselves, who we really are, what is our role in this world, and what is our real identity beyond the ones that is given to us by the society we live in, by the profession we are in, and by the status that we enjoy. But that's not who we are. And this dimension of spirituality or yoga allows us this self-discovery. The other level of union in yoga happens at the level of divine. That's where you connect with the supreme power, the eternal truth, or the ultimate energy, whatever name you really want to give. But let's call it divine for a moment. And the best part of this is that to meet the divine, we don't really have to leave our current body and our current abode to meet God in his heavenly abode. Based on the philosophy of Eastern scriptures, it is possible here and it is possible now through the processes of mind training and meditation. So this is the kind of yoga that I'm going to discuss today. Each one of these is a very important component of yoga and perhaps requires an independent lecture. However, in the interest of time, I'm going to provide you with a snapshot of what these elements of yoga mean and how they interact with each other. So let's begin by analyzing the mind because this is the center of activity in our body. Generally speaking, humans commonly have hundreds and thousands of thoughts, 6,200 to be precise, based on a very recent scientific study, in fact, done actually in Queen's University in Canada. But if you ask Dr. Google how many thoughts we have in a day, it will tell you roughly 30 to 70,000 thoughts, which is kind of too much in my opinion. But regardless of the number, we should appreciate and realize that thoughts are very powerful. Every action except for the basic biology, meaning the breathing, the excretion, the digestion within the system, all of those actions are very basic biology. But apart from that, every single action begins with a thought. If you sift through the pages of history, you will realize that each single revolution, each single philosophy or ideology evolved with a single thought, be it Republican versus Democratic, liberal versus conservative, socialist versus capitalist, or any type of other revolution that always begins with a single thought. They are so powerful and infectious and toxic that it is simply uh, unimaginable the speed that they travel with. In fact, most of the examples of radicalization can be seen in the form of thoughts going viral. However, that said, most of these thoughts, even though they are very, very attractive, they are largely comparable to weeds in the garden. What I mean here is in the garden of our mind, only very few of them have any merit. So our mind has a very interesting screen and a very large projector, and it projects many of the thoughts that we perceive from outside and inside. So there are two distinct sources. One is the external source. It's largely dependent on the media and the television and the news and all of those things. And then there is an internal source of these ideas and thoughts. And these are the words that I have taken from published literature. And they are not in any order. They are randomly placed. But one of the theme is very common here, and that is family, friends, and relationships. All of these thoughts go through our mind and project it in our brains and the screen that we carry with us. Interestingly enough, these thoughts always represent either past or future. And in fact, it's very interesting to note that future is nothing but a past. The past that is more romantic, a past that is more happier and healthier, and without the mistakes that might have been made in the past. But future is basically a glorified past as well. So when do we get this time to think about these things, perceive the external signals as well as internal signals? While one of the very recent research tells us that 47% of Americans are inattentive at work. So obviously there is time for distractions, and these thoughts are nothing but the distractions that we have. And there is a tendency to play them over and over again. Now, let's see how our mind creates stress and anxiety as a result of regurgitation of these thoughts. As I said, the function of mind is to think, and it does a fantastic job of doing so. I already told you how many thoughts go through our mind. But if the thoughts remain as thoughts, then it's okay. But when they proceed with the energy that we provide them and become an attachment or desire, that's where the problem arises. So let me give you an example of this using my own story. In the neighborhood I live, there is a very, very beautiful home. It has a splendid garden, and it has an impeccable stone driveway, of course, with a very beautiful red Ferrari as well. So occasionally I will pass by this house on my evening walk and stop to admire the beauty of the house and the car. And to that point, it's okay. But the moment I start thinking, well, I also deserve it, I should have it, why don't I have it? Why don't I have it right now? What I have done in that case is I have put some of the energy to this thought, which has taken speed. Now I am attached to it. The attachment leads to desire, and desire has another very unique feature, that it is never fulfilled. It's a bottomless pit. If it is fulfilled, it gives rise to many more, and then many more, and then many more. If it is not fulfilled, it leads to anger. In both situations, it leads to confusion, loss of wisdom, and apparent misconduct. And we see that example all the time, all over again and again. Now, these philosophies have been taken primarily from ancient Indian scriptures, primarily Srimad Bhagavad Gita and the philosophy of Buddhism. So that's one way to think about how mind and thoughts can create a neurological clutter, which leads to stress and anxiety. But you may be wondering why I have these two photos here of a monkey and a pendulum and a watch. I wanted to emphasize two other interesting properties of mind here. One of which is that mind does not allow us to suppress the thoughts. Once a thought is there, it will be there and it will gather energy. The only way to deal with this is through meditation, which we'll talk in a few minutes. But let me give you an example of how incapable we are in terms of stopping a thought once it takes place. I'm sure you have heard of earworms. Earworms are the best way to explain is there are days when you hear of a very catchy song or a tune and you start humming it, let's say in the morning. The tune is catchy, so you hum it and you repeat it several times. But how many times can you really hum a catchy tune? And after a few minutes or an hour, you want to get rid of it. But believe me, and I'm sure you have gone through this process as well, it's extremely difficult not to think or hum about that particular tune that you want to get rid of. The more you think about it, the more it will come again and again. If God comes on this planet in a disguise of a magician and tells me, well, here is the secret to win 649 so that you can own that house and Ferrari, but there is a condition, and the condition is that I'm not going to think about monkey for 3 days. Trust me, I will never have that 649 ever, because the more I would want not to think about monkey, I actually would. Now, another property of mind and how it plays games is that it never allows us to see two sides of the coin or two sides of the story. There are always two sides of the coin, and always at least two sides of the story. But the beauty of mind is that it only allows us to see one single side at a time, because this is mind's way of manipulation. In fact, when we see that the pendulum is going one way, all that it is doing is gathering energy to come back. Let me give you another example and continue with my fascination with with the automobile that my neighbor has. So 10 years ago, I wanted to buy a car. It was time to change it, and I did extensive research. And after that, I had two options. I could either buy a Nissan or Toyota, and I opted for Nissan because I had top 10 reasons to do so. In fact, it is the property of the mind that it actually makes its own decision. And most of the research that we do is simply to justify and satisfy that decision that has already been made. But anyway, I ended up buying a Nissan. So pendulum going the other way. 5 years later, I had to change the car again for a reason. And guess what? This time I also did extensive research and I had the same top 10 reasons, but the option at this point was to buy a Toyota, not a Nissan. The mind has this property to get obsessed. For example, if you buy a new car and you're enthusiastic and excited about it, let's say it's a Toyota, you can find every single Toyota on 401. They were there before, but at that time I was driving a Nissan and I didn't see it. But now that I have one, I am fixated in my thoughts and views. I will spot every single one of those. So these two properties really allow mind to play games with us. And automobile is a very, very simple example. Let me give you even more interesting example. We think that choosing our spouse is one of the most important thing. And in fact, it is not only thinking, it is the most important decision that we ever make. And here it is, the Hollywood celebrities, Zaza Gabor, married 9 times. And her statement, a girl must marry for love and keep on marrying until she finds it. Rita Hayworth married 5 times, and her problem was she didn't understand how the marriage succeed. She could understand why they fell. Elizabeth Taylor, 7 husbands, married and divorced the same person twice. It's interesting. After buying the Toyota, I changed the car again, Mazda, and I think I'm going back to Toyota again. Larry King married 7 times. So here's some of the examples that I picked from literature to show how mind plays games with us. Now, let's look at what can we do? What are the possibilities that we have with us to remove this clutter from our mind? And meditation is one. Just like yoga, meditation is also a very popular term. It is very widely used, but sometimes it means different things to different people. So let me define that for you the way I see it. To me, meditation is the silence. It is the gap in the noise. And let me illustrate that for you, what I mean by this. When you play a piano or a keyboard and you glide your finger over the keys in a non-stop motion, what you're going to hear is the noise. But when you play the key one by one, that gap that you create actually is the real music. If there was no gap, there will be no music. That gap, that silence is actually the meditation. In other words, the meditation is being a witness without any thoughts in a deep sleep, but with awareness. So we're not just sleeping, our faculties are still aware and they are completely aware of the surroundings, of what goes on and what doesn't go or proceed. And that is the situation or the status or the state we call meditation. Now, meditation can also be defined more succinctly as it is separation from the mind and thoughts, and to be a witness in the present moment, not distracted by the past and the future. As we saw previously in the slide, that there are many, many sources of distraction, and we got plenty of time sometimes with us to think about those. Meditation is the process that takes us in isolation, in peace, and we're not distracted by past or future. One of the very first step to disassociate ourselves from thoughts and our association with thoughts is to practice unconditional compassion or non-judgmental attention. It's a very, very important first step before we even begin um, to think about meditation. The reason for this is, as I said, meditation is a separation that allows us to separate ourselves from thoughts. So ability to think is ingrained, the ability to desire is ingrained. We have to recognize and get rid of it. Let me give you a very simple example. Again, let's say you are in a parking lot and you are going to a shopping mall for shopping. Now, as soon as you get out of your car, you see that the person whose car is parked next to you has dropped his or her wallet or purse and is moving towards the shop or the mall. You see that process happening. So you run, you pick up the wallet or the purse, and you shout, "Excuse me," and then you go run up to the person, give the wallet back, and the person um, thanks you. That's one situation that can happen, even offers you a coffee, and everything is fine. However, if something like this happens, that the person takes the wallet and walks away without saying a word, what would you think? The first thing that comes to mind is, well, I did all of this. I ran, I shouted, I handed over a very valuable property that could have been lost, and the person even did not have the courtesy to say thank you. What it tells us is that there was an inherent, a hidden desire to be appreciated for a kind thought that we had. The very first thing we need to do is recognize unconditional compassion. And that means doing something without expecting anything. And that is a very simple practice and can be done so that we recognize that there is an inherent desire in us, and we need to recognize and move on. Once we have completed that first step, the life becomes easier and easier on path of meditation. As Dalai Lama would say, a wandering mind is an unhappy mind, even if they are pleasurable thoughts to which it drifts. So it doesn't matter how lucrative, how beautiful the thoughts are, we need to focus. And the focus mechanism is meditation. Being here, being now is what is meditation. Are there benefits of meditation? We talk much about what it is, but are there documented benefits of meditation? Well, there are far too many. I have concised this for you, taking this information from hundreds and thousands of papers that are published in scientific journals. So meditation can help in reducing stress and depression, mood and anxiety disorders, panic disorders. It can also increase the gray matter concentration, brain function, sleep quality. A lot of people are having problems with sleeping these days, and sleep quality, even if sleep is there, isn't very good. And meditation helps with that too. It allows us to focus, pay attention, and the ability to work under stress, which is what we need in these challenging times. Meditation also reduces the risk of many of the diseases: diabetes, blood pressure, inflammatory disorders, even Alzheimer's. It is said that there is no cure for Alzheimer, but if we somehow can prevent the onset of Alzheimer's or can delay it, chances are the severity of Alzheimer will be reduced as well. So there are not one, but multiple benefits of meditation. Let me give you a couple of solid evidence to support what I have just claimed here, that meditation is very useful. The very first evidence is the structural. There have been a number of studies using the new analytical techniques, which can scan the brain and figure out the growth of different portions of the brain. And here's an example on my left, where the brain tissue, which is responsible for attention and sensory processing, is shown. It is certainly different in individuals who meditate regularly. In fact, the photo of the monks is just a representative photo. The brains were scanned of people who were in trauma center for that particular study that I'm talking about. These experiments was conducted on nurses that were dealing with trauma, and the nurses who practiced a meditation, their brain tissues were thicker, healthier, as compared to the nurses that were not meditating. And these nurses with meditative brains were able to handle the trauma much better than others. In addition to physical changes in the brain, the meditative brain also has chemical changes. When we practice meditation, there is increased blood flow of the endogenous level of hormones. These particular hormones, serotonin, melatonin, dopamine, and endorphins, these are hormones that are produced in our body. Melatonin and serotonin are particularly produced in pituitary gland, which is in a position just in the middle of two eyes. Sometimes people refer to pituitary gland as third eye as well. And it has been subject of a lot of research. In fact, for the last 25 years, I've been researching melatonin and serotonin and the role that they play in plants and how they can help the meditative process as well. If I were to summarize this, this is a huge topic, but all that I'm going to say here, that when people meditate, there are changes in the blood flow, and these hormones that are associated with happiness, with stability, with enthusiasm, with mental wellness are secreted, managed, and regulated much better than the minds that are not meditating. Is there chemistry of consciousness? Probably is, and it is mediated by neurotransmitters. So how do we meditate? What are the techniques? I mean, we talked about meditation being very useful, very, very effective. The question arises, how do you really do it? The key to meditation is the focus. We must focus because remember that we have many, many different thoughts, 6,200 thoughts going. Are we going to chase every single one of them? Obviously not. So how do you focus? Illustrated in this figure, the thoughts are very beautiful, very colorful, very, very colorful. You simply want to get rid of them. And that can be done by focusing. There are a number of methods. The very first one is the breathing, and it is part of the standard yoga exercise. It was very popular in and still is in Buddhist culture, focusing on breath, the breath going in, the breath going out. Basically, breath connects us to the external world. And Buddha used this technique quite effectively and still is utilized by many, many different cultures. Then one can focus on different centers within the bodies. These centers are invisible. If we do postmortem of a body, we'll never find. But these 7 or 8 centers that people believe exist in the body, and focusing on them can elevate the level of consciousness. In fact, the ultimate consciousness is in the topmost part of the body. And this is called nirvana, or ultimate bliss, for that matter, if all of the centers are energized. But again, the focus is the key, and it begins on focusing on an object. The second method that people suggest to use for meditation is focusing right in the middle of 2 eyes, the third eye, which I just described, because it is the center for hormones that are produced in our body for regulation of many, many different metabolic activities. Or one could actually utilize any other object to focus. Sometimes people use a plain paper with a black dot on it, or any other object for that matter. There are certain meditative processes that utilize flowers to focus on. So here is my take on plants. So I said there will be a surprise package in this mix. So here it is. I think plants can be used for focusing. In fact, they are available everywhere. They're beautiful. And it's easy to focus on them. And looking at a plant is simply admiration of the beauty of the plants. Um, you can communicate with them. In fact, many of the indigenous communities claim that they talk to the trees and trees talk to them. I give communication talks in my course on plant propagation. And when I go to even old home centers as part of my volunteer activities, and I have a chance to speak to very wise men and women, many of them tell me that, yes, they can talk to people's spirit through plants. And of course, there are traditions like ayahuasca, where a shaman or a medicine man will take a cocktail of plants, and then the spirit within the body can go out. And this can only happen to an accomplished person, of course. And the spirit will then bring back the solutions to the problems, the medicine for curing a particular disease, or even giving information about nature. So why not utilize plants for focusing? They are in abundance. They are everywhere. They are out there in the nature, which brings another element related to plant, that they are part of the nature. Basically, they connect us to nature, and I'll speak to it just in a few minutes. Then they provide oxygen, well, which is very important for our mental and physical activity. More oxygen, better our mind will be. It is not surprising to me that Buddha was very well aware of it. If you know the life history of Buddha, he was born under tree. He meditated under tree, actually got enlightenment under a tree, and he passed away. He left his body in the middle of trees as well. Was it a coincidence, or was it a thought out process? Well, that remains to be seen and investigated. But the chances are he probably was aware of the advantages of plants for meditation. As I said, plants do provide connections with nature as well. And I think when I say plants connects us with nature and spirituality, I'm not making a statement that cannot be substantiated. To me, the role of plants in meditation and spirituality is very important, and I prefer to use the term spiritual botany to describe that. Why do I do that? How do I came up with this idea of a spiritual botany? I was researching on the role of plants and how they have been helping people in the development of religion, spirituality, and community building. And I looked at many, many different cultures, attended several workshops offered in South America, India, China. And one thing that I found, which was very, very interesting, was that every single culture talked about five elements: sky, water, air, fire, earth. The names may be slightly different, but the elements remain the same. Whether we speak of the Chinese philosophy of yin yang, or we talk about Ayurvedic philosophy of doshas and a balance of these doshas and yin and yang, leading to great human health and mental wellness. The key there is to be in balance with these five elements. In fact, the Chinese Materia Medica and Ayurvedic literature goes to say as far as that if we are not in balance with nature, it is impossible to have a happy, healthy physical and mental life. Now, if you start your search looking at any organism that interacts, that mediates all of these five elements, I bet that you will not find anything better than plants. In fact, these are the only organism, to the best of my knowledge, on this planet that actually interacts and mediates all of the five elements: sky, water, air, fire, earth. They are planted in earth, they absorb and transpire water. They have space within them, they search for space, they capture and release air, carbon dioxide and oxygen. They respond to touch, sound, and thunder, and they produce food, which is the energy. When it burns in our body through metabolism, that's where the energy comes from. And plants have power to influence our senses as well. So let's look at the practical application of plants meditation and mental well-being. Do we choose meditation or we choose medication? Now, there's a similarity here in the role of plants. If you see this part here, meditation, as I told you that during meditation, our brain produces hormones like melatonin, serotonin, and dopamine. And the result of this meditation is the balance of life and a bliss or nirvana or moksha, whatever we want to call it. On the other hand, the drugs that we take or are given to treat mental disorders, sometimes the addiction causes people to take drugs over and over again. They also influence the same type of hormones within our brains, but the drugs normally leads to addiction agony. I'm not saying here that meditation is panacea for treating every physical and mental ailment. When the disease gets very serious, all of these interventions are absolutely needed and people should follow that. I'm not a medical person to recommend one or the other. This is the research that I find in literature, and seems to be very convincing to me that it is always a good idea to follow prevention. In fact, the basic philosophy of Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine is prevention. It is much better than the treatment. In fact, in ancient times, the physicians were paid if people were not sick. If anybody in the village falls sick, their salary was reduced, which I think was a better proposition in those times. But in any case, the plants do feature in both of these cases, and it is up to us to make a choice. Are we going to go for meditation or medication in that sense? Are we going to rely on drugs, or are we going to follow simple processes of meditation to find a balance in our life? I'll give you an example how this can be applied immediately. These are the COVID times, and a lot of people are reporting depression and anxiety. Depression is a psychiatric neurological disorder, and it is very serious. In fact, if you look at what it can do, it causes mood swings, loss of pleasure, loss of interest, aggressiveness, agitation, and more importantly, it can lead to suicidal thoughts. Depression, according to WHO, is the second largest disease after heart disease. Um, as of 2019, almost 4 million Canadians reported having diagnosed for a mood or anxiety disorder. Same is true. Dementia is a general common umbrella to specify mental disorders. 500,000 Canadians have dementia, including Alzheimer's disease today, and the number is going to double by 2030. Interestingly enough, every single Canadian pays for it. Healthcare system cost of caring for people with dementia is $10.5 billion, was in 2019. And what makes it more serious is that if we want to, first of all, there is no cure right now. But if there was one, to bring it to market will cost $360 million approximately. Compare it with meditation and plants. Meditation is free. Plants are inexpensive. They can be also free if you're just connecting in nature. They are out there anyway. So let's summarize what I have said so far. This is one of few last slides. We talked about yoga. It has two components, physical and spiritual. They both are equally important. The physical takes care of the body. The spiritual dimensions of yoga takes care of our mind, the mind that plays games, and it can be handled with meditation. If we allow the garden of the wheat to turn into a garden of flowers, only beautiful, positive thoughts, and eliminate the negativity from our brain, then it is possible to achieve mental wellness. We also talk about the self-discovery, or what is defined as spirituality. Spirituality is nothing but discovery of self, how we are connected with the Supreme and to the nature and to different elements that nature presents to us. We can call it divine, and plants also have a role to play in it because they connect the five elements. And the universe, as it is a good example to be considered as the superpower or eternal truth or divine, any which way we want to define it. As I said, each of this particular circle here is a concept in itself and requires a whole lot more time than what I have today. But I hope that I have presented a snapshot for you how these factors are interconnected and how they can be utilized to make our life a little bit better and for improving our mental wellness. If you want to learn a little bit more about this passion or my passion about plants and connecting plants, environment, and spirituality, you can browse through the Spiritual Botany magazine. It's a free online medium. It has 7 volumes out, and I'm working on the 8th one now as we speak. And at this time, also, I would encourage you to submit your ideas. This is a platform for public. It's a platform for everyone who feels that plants have a role to play. And I would truly appreciate your contributions. Let me close the presentation by emphasizing that we need to be in sync with nature, with plants, with environment, and balance our energies within our body with the external environment. I really like this quote by Krishnamurti. We take hold of a branch and think it is the tree. Through the knowledge of the part, we can never realize the joy of the whole. In fact, if we need to understand, if we want to learn about divinity, I think to me the best way to define the divine or the God or the bliss or the pleasure or the ultimate truth, we need to practice meditation, and through which we would realize at some point that divinity is the invisible thread that binds all elements in existence. Take a look at the necklace that you have. Take a look at the garland that we sometimes use. You will not see the thread that binds the pearls. You will be able to see the pearl, but that invisible thread is what holds it together. These five elements that we talk about, they hold the universe together. They provide the sustenance that we have. And I think I have no hesitation in saying that that invisible thread is actually the ultimate power, truth, or divine, if we want to use that term. With that, thank you very much. I really appreciate your attention. And once again, thank you for listening patiently despite the interruptions we had. And once again, Lalit, thank you so much for your efforts to enhance the awareness about yoga and this excellent speaker series. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Praveenji. That was a very, very beautiful session, very educational for me too. And also, bringing everything together. As you said, you spelled out the parts and how the whole can become so much more beautiful. So with that, I will leave this platform for any questions, if anybody in the audience, they have any questions that you would like to share with the speaker, please do that. Any question for the speaker?
If there are questions that are not occurring to you at this point, you can always reach to me through email or phone. I'm on the campus directory, and I'll be very happy to interact.
And also remember that we have, the feedback form there. You can always leave your questions there. And there's an email if you go to the website. That's another way to connect with us if you have any questions with any of the speakers, today's speaker or later, I have a question, Praveenji, that what is your experience, your own experience with yoga and meditation? Can you please share that?
It's a very interesting question. I will tell you one thing. I don't want to go too much into personal details, but about 16 years ago, I would say 17 years ago, I was going through some situations. One of my parents has passed away, and it was a very difficult and challenging time. And I have heard about meditation and these processes quite a lot, but actually have never practiced that at that time. And I used to teach a course, and I used to tell my students, you can do PhD on water, but unless you really go in it, you have no idea what it is about. Or you can do a PhD thesis on chocolate and write 300 pages, or you can taste it and tell how good it is. Once I tried it, once I went through the small steps of what I described here, unconditional compassion and simple exercise that monks do, and had an occasion and opportunity to interact with spiritual leaders, I realized that, yes, it actually works. So in terms of personal experiences, I can say that it changes your point of view towards life.
Thank you, Dr. Saxena. Yeah, so what I take it from you is that, practice is the key, unless you practice, you are not going to realize, what is yoga or what is meditation. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful answer, actually. There is another question from John, and he's asking that, you say that all five elements, they relate to plants, What is the role of the fire? So that's the question. I did not understand very well. So that's the question that audience is asking.
What is the role of five elements?
Yes.
Well, I I think the one beautiful thing about philosophy is that there are many explanations, and actually two and two can be four, five, or six. It's not exact science, so I'm going to take the liberty of philosophizing that the if we were to believe that there is a supreme power somewhere, and there is, and he does not make a mistake. He does not replicate things either. For example, if you pick up two stones, if they're not really manufactured in a factory, they're not going to be alike. They will be different. Even two organs in our body are different. They're not exactly the same. So the whole scheme of universe is very complementary. Um, there is a balance that is needed. For example, the Earth needs to be balanced by other solar planets. And if the idea is to support a human population or organism on planet, we need the oxygen, we need the food, we need the water, and we need all of these five components, without which life will not be possible. According to the ancient Indian philosophy, as they say, we come from five elements and we go to the five elements, dust to dust. And that dust simply means five elements. So it is important to survive, sustain, and flourish. They're needed for it. If you mess with any of these elements, the results are disastrous, as we are seeing already in terms of climate change. Such a nice weather, although we appreciate it, isn't real Canada. There are examples that are already happening around the world where disturbance in these five elements is reducing the quality and sustenance of life significantly. So that actually is an indirect evidence to suggest that these are required, they are important, and they must be in balance. Not only that, the internally as well, we need to be in sync with these elements as well, which again is a message that any disturbance outside is going to cause a disturbance inside as well. I hope I have addressed some parts of it.
Thank you. There is one more question, but before we take that question, I just wanted to remind you that we still have two more events that's coming up. So our fifth speaker is going to be actually a little bit rescheduled. So keep your eyes on that. And then after that, on April 22nd, all the speakers, they are going to come together and we are going to have a panel discussion, question answer event. So please, we have the recorded videos on the YouTube. Please go there, see all of the videos, see all the speaker, and then also provide your feedback, so that, we can make it more better the next time, hopefully we'll have another series like that in the next year. So we'll try to make it better, next time. So remember all those things, there is those links are in the chat. If you just pay attention to the chat, there are links for that. So another question, maybe I'll ask you, Dr. Praveen Saxena, that is it possible that, so you have been using those psychotropic, plants, and then you just leave them, and could you still be in that spiritual state where, you're not using any of the psychotropic plants?
Um, Yes, it's a very interesting question. Let me go back to the example that I said, and we really have to look at the reason for addiction. Um, as I said, the mind has a very interesting property to suppress our ability to not get rid of the thoughts. The more we want to get rid of a thought, the more stronger it becomes. That's just how mind plays the game. The addiction is a direct result of that, in my opinion, because we are not able to get away from anxiety, and we have started taking a psychoactive plant. The dose will increase over a period of time because we have not fixed the problem which underlies there. If the problem was reduced, the addiction will not be there. Look at the opioids at this time. The frustration leads to the consumption of opioids, and it is creating havoc in our society. If there was a way for the problem not to happen or reduce it right in the beginning, probably the need for more psychoactive plants and addiction will not be there. And then you will be able to choose for what purpose the, the psychoactive plant is being taken. That's how I would view it. One of the great things about meditative mind is that, as I said, it's you are separated. You can see the thoughts coming, but you're not affected by them. And if the thought comes that we must take it because there's a problem, one can always negotiate with the mind that no, the need is not there. I'm already cured, and therefore I'm not going to entertain and give energy to this particular thought. Again, these are easier said than done. I have personally met in my experiences with stress and talking to individuals who go through it. It's a very challenging thing, and it's not easy. But having said that, with proper environment, with proper training, there's always hope. There's always a new beginning. And as I said, meditation is inexpensive, free. Plants are very inexpensive. Good idea to try it out along with other medications that people are taking, if the issue is addiction, as we talk about here. And hopefully it will help. I'm not a medical practitioner, so I can't recommend or say much about prescriptions, but based on the literature that I have explored, the possibilities of prevention having greater impact, in my opinion, are very good.
Any other question on this topic? Because I know it's a very, very hot topic or a popular topic these days. Or if anybody wants to talk about meditation. So I think we will move to the close of this event, this session today. I want to thank you, all of you again, because as I always say, without you, this would not happen. I really, really thank all of you. And also, the speaker, very, 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 very beautiful presentation, very educational for me, as I talked about before, very excellently put together. So thank you very much again, Dr. Saxena, and to everybody else. So wait for our next speaker. We are going to make a change in the schedule, and we'll see you again in this series. Namaste. Thank you, Monique. Thank you, Manju, Lavika. Thank you all. Rachel, Dilipji, Javiji, Dan, Sienna, Paramjitji, Anant Kumar ji. How are you, Anant Kumar ji? Are you still there? Hello. So Anant Kumar ji, one of our speakers, the first speaker here. Hello. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Sudhir ji. Have a great day, everybody. Have a great afternoon.